Hey guys, back again with the fourth episode of the Frontboards and Four Bagger podcast. I am Eddie with Cornhole Bag Reviews, and of course we have Corbin from Corbin's Cornhole Reviews. Today we are talking about the most popular ultra bags right now. We're talking about the Widows and the Viper. And then we're also going to be talking about the different stances that you can use and what different pros are using, and the options that you have to try when you're standing next to the board. So first one we'll get into today is the Widow. So a couple stats on the Widow. So they call it a 6.8 speed. The slow material is actually that 7-speed soft material that you see on a lot of carpet bags that are on the dopes, some WTF bags. But they use what they call the speed control dots on the slow side to slow it down to that 6 number. And then they have the 8 speed side. I don't necessarily know what the 8 material is. It's really soft and nice, but I don't. It doesn't feel like Pro Sniper. It doesn't feel like, it's kind of a unique material.
It's not surefire.
Here's the design. Really cool design. I love the colorways. And then like some of the custom ones are really cool, like the Grateful Widows and whatnot. They've done some cool custom ones. But for prices, we're looking at in the first hour of release on the website, they're $85 plus shipping. I noticed on their last release they did a pre-sale for $95 plus shipping. Then they go up to $115 on the website, but I don't think in the last release they even got close to an hour, so they were kind of all gone. And then now on Facebook, a lot of people are getting them in, so you can get it for cheap end $100, high end $130, Grateful Widows are $140, something like that. So not as expensive as a Viper, but still not a cheap bag. It still holds its value pretty well. And I would say these buy and sell pretty quick. A lot of people are interested in getting their hands on these. So definitely keeps its value pretty well. So in terms of the bead, so the current release of this bag has a small asymmetrical bead. They used to use a disc fill, which is something that we're going to get into here because I think both of us are kind of confused why they would switch and don't like this one as much as the old one. So do you want to go into that? Like what's your opinion on this fill change?
So I was really surprised by it because, I know what Widows feel like. I know what Vipers feel like. We'll get into Vipers next, but you know what they feel like if you felt them. I mean, obviously there's a difference in series and stamped, right? Mm-hmm. But you still know what you're looking for when you feel a Viper. You put it in your hand, you're like, cool, this is a Viper. Yeah, this is absolutely a Widow.
We got Peanut with us too.
Until she falls asleep like last week.
Yeah.
But I felt it and I was like, what? Like someone had a brand new set and they were like, oh, I just got these in, check them out. And I grabbed it and I said, wow, they just ruined this bag.
You did a double take almost. Like, wait, is this a real bag? Like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I was like, no offense. I know you just bought them and you're probably going to love them, but like, what did they do to this fill? And I sat there just grinding at it because I was like, there's no way I actually felt that. Mm-hmm. And I started grinding. I'm like, it's not what a Widow is supposed to feel like. It's not what a Viper is supposed to feel like. They feel different now. Mm-hmm. So I'm very curious why they did it. It's because they're already crazy hole friendly, hands down.
Yeah.
They're already crazy hole friendly and like, they don't need to make them friendlier with an asymmetrical, but now they feel worse.
It either has to be something with, I was talking to some manufacturers. Obviously, a lot of people are really behind on getting their materials in. Who knows if it's like shortage on fill, that so many people are switching this disc. It's just a longer wait time. They had all this backlogged. It's close to like Reynolds' old fill now, which wasn't my favorite fill. I would say I just did my review of the Widows, and Widows gets away with it more than Vipers because both materials are thicker. So like holding it in my hand right now, I obviously know it's a bead. I can feel it, but at the same time, it still goes together well, and it's not so grindy. Like it's not on my fingertips as bad as the Widow.
You're right, Viper because is. I felt Vipers and Widows both, and the Widow does actually get away with it just a little bit more. It's the materials, it's the feel in your hand. Mm-hmm. It's probably not as bad. I could throw it, no problem. But the Viper, I don't even want to hold.
No, well, the Viper, because it uses that, and we'll get into this in a second, but because it uses that Pro Sniper fast, it's so thin that it's like you can't get away with a bad fill because it's just there's nowhere for it to hide. Like you feel it instantly when you have it in your hand. In terms of how the Widow plays, in my opinion, it plays well. I've really broken these in now. Like I've thrown them a lot. Where I know I was talking to you before when I first got the Widows and Vipers too, the new ones with the control dots, they're really sticky when you first get them. Mm-hmm. Where it was actually making my bag kick. Like I'm pretty flat. But if I was slightly off, it would really grab the board with those dots. Now that it's getting more in, it's a little better. But when I did my speed test, my board lift test, the slow and the fast were really close. Like it wasn't a vast difference anymore now that these dots are wearing down, because it's basically a 7 material with the dots on it. So if you wear the dots down, you got a 7/8 bag, right? Which is getting into that tighter window of, speeds. So, I mean, but both sides, again, super hole friendly. I would say it feels really high quality. I think that Ultra has the best stitch that exists. It is like, you can't even tell that it's stitched in that side. I mean, unless you stare at this, I mean, it's so close to the edge. It's insane. Like, I can't believe, but on the contrary, I've seen people on Facebook have a couple stitch issues lately, like couple hole,
only
like
on
openings.
Vipers so far, but yeah.
Oh, really? Okay. But I mean, who knows if it's just that tight, but I would say on the ones that, have it, it's a really nice stitch. I actually said I kind of thought it was a negative, only for the fact as part of my pre-shot routine is I set all the bags together with stitch in the same area, and like I layer them together. And this is the only bag, and Vipers too, I mean all Ultras bags, that I have to look for the stitch. Like I'm like, wait, where is the stitch? It takes me that extra half second to stack my bags. That
just look for the stamp.
Yeah, and I do that sometimes. But then the problem is, too, is the design's so similar, too, that I'm like, all right, so stars down, stamp, right corner. It's like it's not as quick as some of my other bags. I had that same thing with Widows, too. Yeah. So, I mean, it's not it's not a fault on the bag. It's just personally in my mental game when I'm playing, it's an extra thought I'm having when I'm trying to stack my bags. But either way, they play really good, crazy hole friendly. They slide in the hole almost like, game changer cheater way. Where like they just, they slide back in the hole, toilet bowl if you need them to. Even the Widows do it. I know everyone knows Vipers are like that. Widows are really close behind it.
They're still right there.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people that throw Ultra bags go Widow or Widow B maybe or Viper C, but Widow into Viper as the conditions change, kind of like people do the Surefire into Pro Sniper transition. And if you're an Ultra person, you're going to throw these. So it's a good bag.
It's absolutely a good bag. I've thrown couple different versions of them, different, I'm not going to say vintages, but different releases, whatever, the Twilight camo ones, the blue camo ones, I've thrown those. I've thrown the newer stamped ones. I've thrown the old like gray with orange web ones. I have not thrown any series Widows yet. I would be curious to try those out because I have thrown series Vipers, but I haven't thrown series Widows. So I'm curious how those throw. But overall, I mean, if someone comes to the board and they're throwing Widows, I kind of do oh crap.
Yeah.
Because there's a pretty good chance that they're throwers and they're going to be sticking them in the hole because there's not a ton of people that throw Widows very much anymore. No. And I'm not sure why, because it is a really, really solid bag. But to your point with the control dots, I mean, Kylie, they work well. And some people say, oh, they'll totally wear off. What's the point of them? Like, I've never seen them totally wear off. They just they become less sticky. I mean, it just becomes a more slippery kind of material on there when they get dirty and stuff, but they do what you want. I would like something a little slower on the slow side. Yeah. But like not Widow B slower.
Yeah.
So I want to say they're coming out with like the Widow X, which is Widow fast side with Widow B slow side with no dots.
That'd be nice. Because I would say
like a 5.8,
Yeah, and I mean, everyone's coming out with a 5.8. But
it's because it's
for good reason, I know. But I would say the fast side without the dots, crazy forgiving, like does not kick at all. It goes really straight up the board, but it's really fast. Yeah, very fast.
It's stupid fast. It gets away from you so quickly.
But if you get a little bit more humid, I think the Widow's just as fun to throw as the Viper. I think it's just as hole friendly as the Viper.
Did you notice any clogging issues with your Widows before they were fully broken in?
Before they were fully broken in, yes. When I did the review, I didn't do any chemical break-in at any point. I just threw them, and I didn't know. I bought them from a guy who said he just threw them, so I was like, I'm just going to throw them. I did notice at the beginning they were kicking a lot more, and they were a little less hole friendly. Since I've finally got them to, I mean, they're not, and they don't get crazy floppy. But I mean, mine aren't super floppy yet. But I mean, they just create a really nice handhold.
Just got to show your new hat.
Oh, the full SW squat.
Oh, yeah. We got the SW squad.
But going back to what you said real quick
They're
about,
good bags.
going back to what you said real quick about series too, is I want, I said this in my review too, is make sure when you're buying widows, if you want widows, you know which widows you're getting, because in the bottom left corner, when we say series 1 has a Roman numeral 1, series 2 has a Roman numeral 2, series 3 is blank with no stamp, and then they got into their stamped bags. They're 2020 stamped, and now they're 2021 stamped. 2020 stamped have the disc fill, 2021 have the bead fill, and then the series are slightly different materials. So it's all widow. They're all different in slight capacities. So make sure you kind of know what you're looking for in that facet and know the differences before you're just shelling out money. And same thing with the Vipers. Series widows sell for more. So if you see someone selling widows for X amount of dollars, that's not the stamped 2021 widows we're talking about. They're very different, and they're limited release from the past. So that's kind of why you're seeing a lot of differences. And it's the same thing with Viper, which we'll get into here in a sec. So stats on Viper, 7.9. They use the control dots on the slow side as well. The fast side, like I said, is that pro sniper thin fast side. 7 side is kind of a reverse of the Widow slow with dots. It's like an 8 speed with dots. Still a very soft, nice material, but very quick. Obviously, you're not throwing this bag when it's dry. I mean, you could, but it's more difficult to throw when it's dry. Again, like we said, the current Vipers have that small asymmetrical bead they switched to. They used to have the disc, which is why, you're seeing, and a ton of people just got Vipers in on the Facebook page. There's tons of people selling them right now. Just know that the 2021s have that bead fill, which I personally think feels... 22s, yeah. Which I personally think feel a lot worse. And then there's series Vipers, which have a completely different fast side material, actually. And so the very different bags, but price point for the newer ones, you're looking at like 140 to 160 on Facebook ish is kind of what I'm seeing them at. They did a $125 pre-sale and then $85 in the first hour. Their entire website crashed within like 20 seconds of opening. And I mean, it was a big fiasco, but it didn't last more than like a minute or 2 minutes. I mean, they were like sold out ridiculously fast. So technically it's 115 after that. It's never even got remotely close to that. I mean, this is the first Viper release they've done in like 6 months, and it went terribly bad and sold out instantly. They have released some new colors that are really cool for the 2022 year. Neither of us have Vipers on us currently, but they basically have a snake on the bag like you would think a Viper would be. So what is your opinion on a Viper? I'm sure you've played with and against a Viper plenty of times.
Yeah, more against than with, actually. I don't think I've actually ever thrown Vipers in a blind draw or anything like that. It's just not my speed.
Yeah.
Vipers are a good bag. I don't necessarily hate them. It's one of those bags that when someone walks up to the board with them, I know that I'm pulling out a slower bag because I'm going to block them because they want to go for the hole.
Correct.
Because they're good at it. Now, they're a very, very good bag. And just my personal preference, I think you would probably agree with this. This goes with Widows as well. I would rather throw the 2021 stamp versus the 21-22 stamp.
Oh, of course.
Because of that fill. The colors are a little cooler on the 22s, but they don't feel as nice. So I think it's a nicer bag, and they kind of made a little step backwards with what they're doing now. But they're solid. People are still going to throw them all the time.
Yeah.
They get stupid broken in, stupid floppy, makes them insanely hole friendly. They are, to me at least, I don't know how it is out by you, they're very susceptible to humidity.
Yeah.
I've seen Vipers kick.
Yeah.
So like I've seen them do weird stuff, when it gets dew on the boards and all that. Vipers, they don't necessarily handle it well, but if you're in a drier condition, the boards are a little bit slow. They are a very, very good bag.
Very fast.
It's just they're fast. And that's the thing, when we're talking about these fast bags, of course I've thrown them. I've thrown them a lot. I just don't own any because I don't prefer that faster speed.
I mean, we saw Cheyenne.
There's nothing wrong with them.
We saw Cheyenne Renner just throwing them in ACL Pro. I mean, like,
oh my gosh,
if you can control a Viper, it goes around anything. I mean, it barely needs any part of it in the hole. I know there's a YouTuber that posts like 4-bagger videos and stuff on Instagram, trick shots, and the Washed Up Warrior posts like trick shots with Vipers all the time, and like they'll be like above the hole, and he'll like airmail and he'll like touch the fabric, and you just see it slowly like trickle down. I mean, they're just crazy fast if you can control them. To your point about the 2021, 2022 with the bead change, I think it's borderline bad in my hand. In terms of like Reynolds' freedom level of I don't enjoy to hold them.
I prefer the freedom.
I mean, and to me, it's and we talked about this last episode that I'm kind of a fill nut and stuff, and that's a huge thing for me. And I held the new Vipers, and I was like, man, this is just not the same bag at all. I mean, like it's like it was like a mental barrier I just couldn't get over. It felt like I was holding a bag of BBs, and I just really didn't like it. And to your point, the reason I don't have any on me right now is because I'd rather throw a Costello. I'd rather throw, any of my faster bags, even the Capos that are crazy fast are more comfortable in my hand.
They just feel better. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, they're holding their value for a reason. I think people enjoy to throw them. I think they're just kind of really popular right now. I think you're going to keep seeing them on the sales page. Just because of what we're saying. I don't think these ones are going to be as popular as the last ones. Definitely not as popular as the series Vipers, because talking to some people that before they had a slightly different fast side material in the series Vipers that felt a little more cornhole scenario cat-like, which is kind of why they're really sought after and really expensive. There's not a lot out there too, and it's a Viper. So, I mean, that's why you see those for...
They do feel good though. I've thrown them and like, they are a completely different bag than stamped Vipers. And people are like, oh, stamped Vipers are trash. Like, I wouldn't go that far. No. I think stamped Vipers are just fine, but the series feel way different, and they play really, really nice.
Yeah. I mean, and there's always going to be, that's the thing with, talking to people, they're trying to get all these materials in, they're trying to get all these fills in, they're trying to fill all these orders. Eventually they're going to have to try something new, or they're going to run out, or maybe the with COVID stuff, everything manufacturing is slowed down in terms of product. Who knows what has happened that caused them to have to change. I'm not blaming them for having to change, especially if they were in a position that they had to produce bags and they physically couldn't get the same materials in the fill that they had before. I'm just saying with that material fill combo, which we went over in our first couple of podcasts, that combo just is not really working for me for the new ones. On the Vipers. But at the end of the day, crazy fast bag, crazy hole friendly bag. There's people around me that throw it. If you can start to control it, they do really unfair things.
They do.
And like you said, they get really floppy to the point that they're almost, you barely need anything in the hole and they go in. But I like what you said about they're purely a go for the whole bag. You throw a block up on them.
You can block with them if the boards are slow enough, but it's not a hard block to get through.
No.
That's like, I don't even change my throw. I just lift a fast side and just loft it in there, and it's still going right through it.
Sure.
I don't have to push hard at it whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. But I think they're going to stay popular. I don't think the price is going to change too much.
They're not going anywhere.
No, and especially with how slow the releases are currently from Ultra, I don't see the second market prices coming down much. The prices on their website are pretty fair with that, 185 to 110 or something. Very very to everybody else at this point, but just the slow production. And I know people that got their orders in on 8.5 that were saying they're still waiting on their, shipments. So it's just slower production. So that's why we're seeing the prices go a little bit higher. But all in all, both good bags. Can understand why people use them. So we're going to transition into stances. So obviously, in cornhole, you need to stand a certain way or step a certain way, but a lot of people just kind of stand in front of the board or don't necessarily think about it. And there's actually a very big difference between standing still and stepping with the left foot forward or the right foot forward, or as we'll say in this, our throwing side or our opposite side, because there are, if you're a lefty, it's different.
For you lefties out there.
Yes. But we'll start with probably the least common, which is stepping with your throwing side foot. So if you're right-handed, that means stepping with your right foot forward. There's a couple pros that do this, Cameron Belvern and Sam Finley, who are both very, very good and both made pro shootout, like top 10 in the world. Insanely good players. I don't understand how they don't hit their leg, often. Because I don't know about you, but I feel like I'd whack the back of my leg at least 10% of the time.
I would either hit my leg or literally fall over trying to make it coordinated and trying to throw that way, because it's both of your dominant limbs working at the same time, going forward at the same time. It's just, it's so weird for me to even process trying to do that in my head.
Yeah.
That I don't know how they do it. I mean, you see like, they both actually, now that I think about it, they both kind of do a big swing.
They do.
Like
Sam Finley really whips around.
She really goes into it, you know? So I wonder if that's why, because they really have to avoid their legs. They kind of whip around and they have to get into the right angle each time, you know, clearing their body and then throwing. So it's a very awkward throw to watch.
Yeah.
But it's apparently effective for at least two people.
I mean, and again, we're going to have so many pro examples in every one of these categories that every stance works in terms of if it's comfortable for you and you're consistent with it, it can work. Yes. A caveat to that is if you're new, I would not try stepping with your throwing foot to start, because I think that is the hardest one and the least coordinated one to try to start with. So
that's fair.
Just a level of recommendation. All the other ones you could try. This one I'd probably save till the end if you still can't figure something out.
I would too.
But staying on the throwing side foot, there's a lot of pros and really good pros that stand still at the board with their throwing side foot. So they stand with their foot all the way to the front of the board and they do not move at all. Some maybe do a little baby rock. I know you do a little baby rock, but they don't step forward or use their momentum with their legs as much. And I mean, just listing a lot of the pros, I mean, I'm sure you guys have heard of some of these. Adam Hissner, who just won the pro shootout, Matt Guy, Yeti Irwan, Ryan Windsor, Noah Wooten, Matt Morden. I mean, a lot of big names, some of the best players to ever play. I know you learned something about Matt Guy, though, that I thought was interesting. Yeah, because he did step
absolutely,
before.
Yeah, I've seen it happen quite a bit because he falls into two categories, and I've seen him play both ways. And what's interesting, and I will bring this caveat also, when he's throwing with his step, he's throwing he's stepping non-throwing side. Yeah, right?
Opposite side.
So he's a righty. So he's stepping with his left foot, throwing with his right arm. When he's standing, he has right foot forward.
Yeah.
So that's super different. But why Matt Guy does that because he's preventing late tournament fatigue. So he's an older guy. He's been playing for a long time. I don't know if he has any issues with injuries or not. I want to say he does. Something with the knees or his back or something. And I could be totally off. I could be totally off on that, but I thought I'd heard something about that. But when he's stepping all day, it makes him more tired. And then if he's tired, he's not going to throw as well. And I actually noticed that as well, because I used to be a stepper as well. So throwing all day, you know, it's tough. You're doing that throw every time. And like, I would actually get a little sore on my right calf because you're pushing off your right calf when you're going opposite leg forward.
I mean, you also have really tiny calves, so.
Well, that's part of it. But it's because I'm so huge up top.
Yeah. You're jail-baited for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys go like that too.
Yeah.
Just go, Yeah. But I really did notice, you know, it makes you a little more tired, and any fatigue is not good. You know, you want to have the consistent throw. You want to have the same thing every time. So Matt Guy does switch. Now, I don't know if he is part of a smaller tournament, if he's going to step, or if he's just kind of switching to no step now. But yeah, he did do that to prevent fatigue. I saw him the first time. I'm like, Matt Guy steps.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on?
He's one of the classic steppers. Yeah.
He's got the very distinct, bag forward, and then he dips really low and lets it go, and now when he's not stepping, I don't even know if he holds his bag forward anymore.
I actually didn't even look when I was analyzing some of this.
I want to say he actually just throws.
Probably.
So
another person I want to put in this category too is that when I was watching, so I was looking up different players and how they stood, and Jamie Graham does both in the last couple of years. Like I watched one highlight where he had throwing side foot on one side and opposite side foot on the other side, which I don't know how in the same match you can switch. I mean, in terms of mentally, that just seems hard. Maybe it's side of the board, so then he always has closest foot next to the board or something. So
guess who else does that?
Who?
Sarah Cassidy.
Oh, she switches side to side to stay close?
I've seen her do that as well, yes. When she's on the inside of the board, she has a certain foot closer, and when she's on the outside, she switches. So she actually goes from non-dominant to dominant forward. And it could have just been the one video that I saw at the one. It was that one, I don't remember if it was a shootout where it was super rainy and stuff. You remember that one? I want to say it was that
Atlanta one.
But I remember, unless the recording was flipped backwards, and maybe it was just her foot was off. But seriously, it could have been. Yeah. It very well could have been. But I remember seeing that, and I'm like, she goes left foot forward, and then all of a sudden her right foot was forward. I'm like, what the?
Even if the camera was flipped, though, like, then wouldn't her arm be flipped? You know, so I think you're probably right.
Yeah, that's true.
That, you know, but
you're such a thinker.
I know it's too late for you to think. You're like done with the whole day. Dude, I can't think no more.
I'm done with it today for sure.
So then we'll get back into the other step. This is the one that I do, which is stepping with opposite foot. So as a righty, stepping with your left foot forward. And a lot of pros do this. Lori Duell, Christine Papke, Kevin Billard, Cody Henderson, Damon Dennis. A lot of really good players, obviously. I'd say this is the more classic one. Like a lot of the older players step left foot forward. Damon Dennis
bowlers.
Yeah, or bowler, sure. And so I do this. It's the most comfortable for me. I've tried no step, and I don't know. It's harder on me, my consistency. I do it purely for the rhythm. For me, it's like it gets my arm in the rhythm. It's kind of like a step rhythm thing. And also for distance, I feel like it's funny that he would switch for fatigue, because I actually feel like I got more fatigued when I didn't step because I was not using any legs. Because now I kind of use my whole body. You know, I have bigger legs than you, so maybe that's why. No, but I mean, for me, it's purely a rhythm and a power thing. Again, it if it works for you, it works for you. I would say one negative or things to be careful with doing the step as someone who does it and has taught other people and watched is make sure that you're stepping with your toe directly at the hole. Because a lot of people will step straight. Like if you're on the right side of the board and shooting left and you step straight, you're going to miss right, or you're going to have to come all the way across your body. So if you are stepping, make sure to line your body up in your step to stepping at the hole or the middle of the board, because it's going to give you bad habits, or you're not going to get consistent. Because if you're throwing on the other side directly next to the board and you switch around, that a lot of people that line up or stand still, they can just line their foot up, their body up, and they're good to go. But if you're stepping, I've noticed that you really got to make sure to stay consistent with where you're pointing and aiming, because it's very easy to get off when you're stepping and not think about it and then wonder why you're suddenly 6 inches right every throw.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So you used to step. So in terms of what made you transition and what have you noticed pros and cons from leaving stepping?
What made me transition is sitting on my lap right now.
Sure.
I kid you not. I'm dead serious. So I was playing one night with a coworker. We worked an outage and he was like talking about bags or whatever. I was like, man, I love playing bags. And he was like, cool, you should play. And I'm like, all right, come over after work, let's play. Hang on, please. And he came over and he was playing, and I was stepping, I was throwing, I was doing my thing. And I had messed with it a couple times with not stepping just to see, and it never felt right. Nothing felt right when I did it. Like you were saying, like I couldn't get any power. I could not figure out which foot I wanted forward. Everything just felt awkward. Right. So I was playing and Kai would not leave my side. She's normally pretty good about staying a couple feet away or staying behind or like directly in front of the board or whatever, she would not stay off my side. And I don't know why. And she kept standing there. I'm like, you know what? Whatever, you can stand right on my side. And I let her stand right next to my side and I stopped stepping. I was like, let's just try this. Put my left foot forward and just started throwing. And all of a sudden I'm like, wow, those are like actually a lot more consistent. It became consistent for me as in like, I'm not shooting as many off the back anymore.
Sure.
And that's because I'm not putting body into it, but it was literally just that night. And I want to say that was a Monday night. I played a regional on Sunday and I didn't step.
So when you're not stepping, do you keep all your weight forward and throw?
No. So I rock.
Yeah, I know you rock. I'm just
right.
Because I've tried it where I kind of have all my weight forward and my front leg actually gets tired because I have so much, it's all kind of sitting on that front leg.
And that's why I rock, because I didn't want to have like a crazy drastic difference in my stance.
Sure.
I still go, my right foot back, left foot forward. And you'll see it. I have my right foot vertical and then I rock back on it, lift my left foot up, and then I fling it. So it just, to me, it's like a hybrid step almost.
Sure.
I'm not actually stepping, but I'm still getting the pendulum motion that I'm used to keep my rhythm.
Sure.
I'm not just going James Baldwin and just flicking from the wrist, just standing there or flicking from his pocket, because that's what he does. You see that dude throw, he doesn't have a backswing. He just shoots that bag right from his pocket.
Mm-hmm.
So the rock helped me a lot. And I know Jordan Power throws that way as well, but he goes right foot forward instead. So that's a little different, but it's something about it. And it just kind of clicked for me. My airmails got more consistent. It's one of those, like, I always heard people say less moving parts is better.
Yeah.
Right.
Obviously.
It's less things that can go wrong. And I was always like, I throw just fine with all my moving parts.
It's kind of where I'm at.
And at the time I was, and I'm not saying that if you go from stepping to not stepping, you're just immediately going to get better. Don't get me wrong. Practice with what you like and practice with what you're comfortable with. But once I got comfortable with the no step and started doing a little bit different stuff, I was like, oh, I got a little more finesse into the game, because you're not taking that big step. You're not worried about other stuff. It's just that little step and then the throw forward.
Sure.
And I have noticed I will do like the Frank Modlin follow through.
I do that on pushes. I've noticed if I go for a big
going
push,
on a hard push, that's how I still get my extra power out of it. And that was the big thing that I had to get used to without stepping at first, was my pushes did not have power because I wasn't doing them correctly.
Sure.
But once you get used to that throw and getting your body into it from not moving, you can still push just fine. But I see Noah Wooten step over sometimes on hard pushes.
Yeah, and airmails
he stands
too.
just still.
Airmails
and airmails.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Some of those guys kind of do like a fadeaway. They shoot the airmail and they like roll off to the side. I've seen Trey do that quite a bit.
Jimmy McGuffin, who just shoots it and knows it's in, so he just grabs his next bag. He doesn't even watch it.
That dude's ridiculous. Just bonk,
it's
whatever.
Insane.
Bonk.
But going into the Frank Modlin, so he does the last one we haven't talked about, which is standing still with the left foot forward, which is the one that you do. Frank Modlin does it. Cheyenne Renner does it. Eric Davis, Brett Guy, Jimmy Graham, all top 10 in the world players. I'd say a lot of the best. I would say there's a bigger chunk of the top players at the standing still categories currently than the step categories. I think a lot of the new up-and-comers are all stepping, and a lot more are doing butterfly grip, which we can get into grips. But there's a lot of changes coming in the ACL in terms of more players have different kind of shot types and cuts and flops, and standing still is one of them. I think a lot of the young guys stand still. You don't see a lot of steppers that are, under the age of whatever number you want to pick. So, so I know we kind of just talked a little bit about you doing it. Obviously, the left foot forward, the same thing as with the step with the throwing foot. Left foot forward to me makes more sense in terms of you're not going to hit your leg. You have a little bit more clearance. It's easier to get across your body, in my opinion. I know that's probably why you have left foot forward. Plus, it was an easier transition from the step to just having the same foot forward. Yeah. But very similar. Obviously, it's the same thing standing still. You did talk about Modlin with the overstep. So I know you said he was having hip issues, or
that's what I think it was. He had a hip surgery or a knee surgery or maybe some injury. I remember I heard that he did have an injury of some sort. And that's why, he had to recover. And that's why he does the overstep, is to reduce the pressure on, I want to say it's a hip, because that would make a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. You can get the pressure off instead of just keeping it on that leg.
Kind of toss it and kind of roll forward like you're walking and then come back. It's not just like a quick jab. He can just keep his momentum going and not be in so much discomfort. Hey.
Peanuts found something interesting.
Can I be quiet, please? She always finds something interesting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
She's singing because she's tired.
The last one I wanted to go into is, I know you brought up just kind of the weird stances, which is there's some people that stand both feet completely at the front of the board. Who is the example that you used when we were talking?
Greg Geary.
Oh, Greg Geary. Yeah, he kind of stands like horizontal to the board.
It's like he's just standing straight up and just throws. Another one that really throws me off, it's not necessarily weird, but I don't fully understand it. Rosie Streaker. Oh. So she actually starts like out of the box.
Yeah.
And she finishes with her foot damn near the middle of the board.
Yeah, she starts really far back.
She starts super deep, and then she finishes foot in the center of the board. And I'm like, to me, it doesn't make logical sense because you're throwing the bag way further than you have to every time.
Or you're stepping really far.
But she's not. She starts outside the box and then finishes halfway through the board. I mean, you got another 2 feet that you could step forward and have a shorter throw.
And you never know if it's like the type of bag she throws.
Hard,
yeah, or like how hard she wants to throw it.
Game changers, and she wings them.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously it works, or it's something she tried. I gotta think.
She's a great player.
I gotta think that makes it so much harder. You know, what if she just stood still and winged it? It's probably the same thing. If she's going to whip it that hard.
Just the distance, though. It's like, are you more likely to hit a hole from 10 feet or from 15 feet? You know, it's just if you're closer, it's going to be a little easier. So, I mean, I think that's why a lot of people do non-step also, because they have their spot that's close and that's where they want to be. And there's no variance from it. You know,
and I think it's all repetition. It's the closest they can get to exact repetition every single throw is your foot is in the exact same spot. It does not deviate from that spot at all. So,
and that's what you're shooting for if your throw's any good, at least. I mean, you don't want to repeat the bad ones.
I would say when you're getting into cornhole, the majority of campground players, yard players, before as you're getting in, almost all step. In my opinion, most people.
Oh, all day.
Yeah. So the no step is something that's going to feel weird. Obviously, Corbin has transitioned. A lot of the pros transition. Him talking about it, I was like listening. I'm like, I want to go practice now because maybe I should transition. Who knows? I mean, and a lot of the guys that I shoot against that are really good do it. I mean, it's just it's that repetition thing. So it might be something for you guys to try. Definitely keep it in your options, especially if you're just learning. Try everything, because before you have this thing ingrained in your head or something you're used to, try something. Who knows, maybe this is easier for you or something that you find that consistency. I would say power is the biggest thing to learn in terms of your distances are going to change because you're not using as much of that stepping power. But if you can learn to, and maybe it's a rock, maybe I need to do a rock, something where it's like a partial change to get myself used to that. So, but definitely a lot of good options. And obviously all of these work because there's top 20 players in the world that all do all of them. So
I was just going to say, there's no right or wrong. You know, I don't want somebody that's watching to think that, oh, I'm a stepper, so everyone's going to look at me like a beginner.
No, not at all.
You know, there's nothing like that. There's a kid I shoot with. I mean, he's young too. I think he's 18. He's a stepper and he will destroy me. So there's no right or wrong stance. There's no, we'll get into these later, no right or wrong grip. It depends how you throw and how you're comfortable throwing. If you find something that works, run with it. That we're not saying you need to change anything.
I mean, and we'll have some reviewer battles, but I'm pretty sure my step will crush you anyway, so I'm not too worried about it.
I mean, you can try, bro.
I was watching you shoot ghosts the other day.
I've seen from you there, buddy.
Oh, okay. I'll send them to you later. Or you just play more than me. That's all. You have a larger sample size, so the 4 that you've saved over the last 16 months, you just keep recycling.
Wow.
But yeah, so obviously, in closing, Viper Widow, solid bag, a lot of different options to choose from. Make sure you know what you're getting when you're buying it, and make sure you're getting a reasonable price, and try them out before you buy them, because you never know which one you're gonna like because they are different from the past to the present. And with the stances, give them all a try. Find something that works for you, and at the end of the day, if you're consistent with it, it's a good stance. Because this game's all about consistency, and you need to be able to do the same thing over and over and over. And obviously, all the pros are able to do it doing all of these styles. So, appreciate you guys listening to another episode. Next week, we will probably be talking about grips. I think Corbin was leading into that a little bit. So, we'll have a couple bags to review for you guys, as well as we'll talk about all the different kinds of grips. And there is a million and variations off of those. So,
oh my gosh.
So, hopefully, we can keep bringing you guys more information. And we appreciate all the support that you've given us on this podcast. It's been really fun, and we're going to continue to put them out for you guys. So hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and we'll catch you in the next one. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.